House Bill 2377 is part of the Grow Missouri initiative. It is the Seed Capital Technology Business Finance Program Act. And I have with me Jay Delong, who's been very active in the development of this concept. And rather than me give the explanation and rendition, I'm going to go ahead and allow him to step forward and testify and explain the concept. And then, of course, open up for questions.
By the way, I'm representing the St. Louis RCGA, but I want you to know that I'm speaking on behalf of these Chambers of Commerce and Economic Development organizations who cooperatively worked this summer using the University of Missouri Kansas City Block School of Management to do a lot of research to understand Missouri's competitive position. And based on the outcome of that, it was very disappointing to find out where we stood vis-a-vis the states around us and vis-a-vis the states we thought we were competing with, the Ohios, the Michigans, the Illinois, the Georgia, etc. And so we decided to formalize some of the recommendations that the professor at the Block School felt were important in developing tech-based economic development. And that's where we came up with the Grow Me State initiative. Some of the research that came out of this, I spoke to you a couple of weeks ago, so I'll be real quick about it. We're doing a reasonable job of having venture capital under management here in Missouri. It's been increasing. There seems to be a reasonable amount of venture capital under management here in Missouri. The problem that was identified in the research and what I see in my day-to-day business is that the amount of money being invested into Missouri companies is very low. So what we found is that traditionally from 98 to 2000 and then most recently, the amount of venture capital invested into the Midwest has been going down. We're a little bit above 5%, now we're below 5%, and that's the amount of national venture capital invested into the Midwest. Well, that's not so terrible because Massachusetts and California are going off the charts. The problem is if the money that's going into the Midwest, the percentage that's going into Missouri is dropping off dramatically. So if we're 5% in the Midwest, this is what Missouri's portion of that 5% used to be. We're down now, this past year, to less than 5%. That means the amount of venture capital nationwide going into Missouri companies is 5% of 5%. So that's dramatically low and unfortunately not helping our companies move to the next level. Real quickly too, what we learned was that we're doing a great job of bringing federal research dollars into Missouri. We're ranked 9th among 50 states, the ability to bring federal research dollars into our universities, and that's on a competitive basis. So they're competing well and they're winning. The problem is that we're 27th in rank in doing anything with that technology that's in our university system. The states around us, one of the reasons we believe the states around us are doing so much better taking that Midwest money is that they're investing into early stage concepts. Here's the states all around us, Arkansas, Iowa, Oklahoma, etc. This is the average amount of money they're spending on capital formation. This is the amount that the state government is investing into early stage companies. It's $2.79 per citizen. The ones we're competing with, Arizona, Ohio, Wisconsin, etc., their average is $2.94. Our average is 10 cents. So what that contributes to then after sustained investment after a few years is growth in early stage companies and then consequently investment into those companies, consequently jobs and employment and growth that we're not experiencing here in Missouri. The bill that's before us, 2058, has two elements to it. It's to create a seed capital co-investment fund and a proof of concept fund. The states around us that have venture capital funds, this is an illustration of them. Iowa, 100 million, Illinois, 75 million. It goes all the way around, all the states that have invested substantial amounts of money into helping companies along and when they started. 2005, these are actual investments into companies. 2005, 2001, 2003. In Missouri, as you can see, we have a big goose egg right here. And then lastly, when it comes to the proof of concept fund, this idea is that, and by the way, these funds are taking equity. These are not grants. These are equity investments, and they all expect to have equity returns when those companies grow. In our proof of concept notion, which is part of this, what we're saying to researchers and potential entrepreneurs is that you're at that, we understand you're at that juncture. You've brought in federal research, you've developed an idea, but you're at that proof of concept challenge. And whether or not you can get your spouse to invest all your savings into a prototype or some other challenge and proof of concept you may have that investors expect you to overcome before they invest into you, we're going to help you. We're going to share that risk by making a $75,000 loan into you, which is forgivable against future sales. If you're successful in 5 years, you pay us a 2-to-1 return. If you're not successful, we will write that loan off. This is modeled after Oklahoma, which started this a few years ago. They just came out with, and during all this research, by the way, we were using best practices, and we're only trying to mimic programs which we know are successful in states similar to ours. In this proof of concept, Oklahoma expected that about 50% of the businesses would fail after 12 months. What they're finding instead is 80% are successful. Since 2003, 14 companies of the 45 recipients have already repaid the loans. What's real important is 68 jobs added or retained last year alone at a $42,000 average salary, which is 33% above Oklahoma's average salary. And so far, $2.5 million has already been returned into this loan fund. So it's an idea of an evergreen loan fund, proof of concept loans, to get technology out of the universities and get it to the point where investors then can now help that company grow. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, once again, Trey Davis representing the Missouri Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Wanted to go on record in support of this legislation. Really like the provision, and Representative Krause mentioned it earlier, about 50% of employees and assets being based in Missouri. I know that, to some may be a low starting point, but really see that as a positive impact for not only, making sure that there's a good start for a Missouri base in the investments that are going to be made, but I think that's also a strong incentive for trying to keep those, retain those businesses that you do make an investment in, keep them in Missouri. Therefore, we're not having to come back here 10, 20, 30 years later and say, why didn't we keep this business in the first place? So I think this is a good place to start. You're making that initial investment. You're also doing something to tell them that, hey, you're going to be there with you for the long run. So I think that's a powerful incentive. Also want to say, just on a personal note, in my previous life, I used to work at the University of Missouri. I used to raise money for physics. I used to raise money for chemistry department. I saw just in that area some of the amazing things that came out of those institutions and the difficulty they had moving them forward. That's just in one area. Now these kind of developments come from all facets, whether it be higher ed institutions or other places. But there's a terrible time getting those things going. And so any incentives that the state can do, whether it be small or moderately large as these are, to help move those businesses forward and to help keep them in the state of Missouri is very strong, because there's some fantastic things going on here in Missouri. As Mr. Delong mentioned, there's a lot of venture capital being raised in Missouri, but it's not staying here. So anything we can do to help move that forward, I think, is good for our state. And as I say to you every time I step in front of you, anything that we can do to continue to create a pro-business environment in Missouri is the right thing to do, and something that we support. And we will continue to work with Representative Flook and others to help make this language work and help it be as good as it can be for the state of Missouri.
Thank you. Anyone else?